Hi, I'm Yasmin Rasyid. Let me first begin by giving you a bit more information about who I am. Many of you know me as an environmentalist. Some know me as a eco warrior or a tree hugger, and some of you call me a sustainability advocate. But what I really am, if I were to label myself, is just a determined individual, just like you sitting in front of me. And it is through determination that really got me to where I am today and got me passionate about sustainable development. And let me explain to you how I got this determination. I think it really started when I was a kid, growing up with my maternal grandparents, where going to rivers and waterfalls over weekends was just a very normal thing to do. It's just like how kids today or parents today would bring their kids to a mall. Back then, in the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of our activities were nature based and outdoor. And I think that was the beginning of my obsession with nature, my obsession with understanding how nature works. And when I am back home, growing up with my Chinese grandmother, I grew up with a lot of values which today we call sustainable values. But to my grandmother, it was just common sense. It was just common sense to not throw things that could be reused again. It was common sense to upcycle and recycle things into other things that it can be useful at home. So I grew up with these kinds of values, and back then we didn't have a name for it. I would just call it just being mindful and not wasteful. But today, in 2020, it probably brings a lot more similarity to sustainable habits. So, growing up with these values, having the opportunity to do a lot more outdoor nature work, I naturally gravitated towards environmental sciences or the world of sciences or the world of biology. So, armed with this passion and determination, I entered university at Duke University in the US. And I think my determination grew into borderline OCD, obsession, compulsion kind of thing with the kind of knowledge I gained over there. It was at Duke that I first heard of words like global warming, climate change, as well as understanding what were the kind of man-made impacts that were actually affecting the morphology, the hydrology, the geography of the planet. And it was so fascinating. And I felt that with all this knowledge, I could come back to Malaysia and do something that can contribute to building a sustainable future. So, double that determination, armed with a university degree, I came back. And my first gig, my first job was as a scientific officer with an international environmental NGO. And I had a wonderful time applying a lot of my university knowledge in put it into a practical context and understand the intricacies in addressing environmental issues in Malaysia. I subsequently went on to start my own nonprofit, Eco Nights. It's 15 years ago since I started Eco Nights, and I started Eco Nights with the passion of providing opportunities for communities with the right tools, with the right platforms to develop sustainable habits and mindsets. And so that was all wonderful. I worked for a nonprofit. I created my own nonprofit. At the back of my head, I was thinking, I've got to get more experiences. I've got to see what's at the other side, the other spectrum of sustainability. And the opportunity came knocking on my door, where I had the absolute pleasure of working with a government agency that allowed me really an opportunity to look at how policies were formulated, how government had its set of challenges as well in terms of addressing changes on the ground with people. And today, I took off my government hat, I put on a corporate hat, and I'm working for an industry that is really in the forefront of looking at decarbonizing its business and creating massive amount of social impact and social value from the nature of the business that it's run. And so there you have it. I worked for the nonprofit. I started my own nonprofit, worked for the government agency, and now work for a corporate and private company. And in between working for all these different stakeholders, I managed to beef myself up academically, and squeezed in a master's and PhD in sustainability as well. I didn't feel like I could neglect the impact and the importance of academia and sustainability. So after all those experiences, after all those knowledge, what is the conclusion, right? Conclusion is sustainability is as complex as it gets. And as much as it's challenging today to understand what it takes to drive these changes to solve sustainability issues, I think it's more important to understand the role of you and I in today's society. I'm going to start by giving you 3 examples of environmental challenges and issues that you, as the audience, have probably faced in Malaysia. Number 1 is the Sungai Kim Kim River pollution issue in Johor. The second is the excessive mining of bauxite in Gebeng, Pahang. And the third, which just happened 2 days ago, is the river pollution issue in Selangor River, which has resulted in 4 to 5 million people in the Klang Valley not having access to clean drinking water. Now, the similarities across these 3 issues is no one really knows who the culprit is, or at least we know who the culprit is, but the culprit is not being brought to justice in real time with the kind of real punishment that is according to their act of pollution. Now, what this has really taught me based on these incidents is, and one common thing I saw across these 3 environmental challenges, is the power of social media and the power of the voice of the public. Even if the media or the people responsible for these horrendous acts of pollution do not own up to the real story on the ground, it's the people that brings out the truth to the ground, armed with a smartphone, with Wi-Fi connection. Now you can see actually more people putting up real stories on ground zero into the social media and actually evoking not just the right anger and right concern, but also pressuring our politicians, pressuring the right stakeholders to take the necessary actions because it's out in the open already. Now, having said all this, we realize the role of stakeholders addressing sustainability. But I think what doesn't really get talked a lot is the role of people like you and me, the people that are behind the screen, probably scrolling through environmental stories on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I think many of us wonder what else is it that we can do if we were to drive sustainability as an individual. So here I'd like to share with you 5 easy ways in which you can start taking charge of sustainability, be it at home, at work, or at school. The first thing that is critical for you to do as an individual is to have that realization, or start that realization today, that everything you do, every action that you make or take creates an impact or opposite reaction to the environment. For instance, that switch that you have switched on, that shower tap that you switched on when you went into a shower this morning, or that meal that you heated up in your microwave oven, or perhaps that drive you took to the mall to get your groceries. Everything that you do on a daily basis creates something that gives back to the environment. In my household, a family of 4, small family, we realize that every time we consume, we generate a lot of waste. An average Malaysian throws out maybe close to 750 grams to a kilograms of solid waste every day. And for my family, we felt that this was actually a challenge worth tackling as a family to see how we can look at reducing the amount of waste we get rid of, as well as being more smart and tactful in terms of how we consume and produce waste. So for me, step 1 was being able to have that realization as a family that we are constantly producing waste every day, and there is a need to look at minimizing that impact on the environment. So what did we do? We did a very simple thing by making sure we have bins that would separate our solid waste from organic waste. Separating wet and dry waste was a really critical thing to do at home to really make that sustainable approach. Our solid waste gets recycled, our organic waste gets composted immediately, and that has really drastically reduced what we actually throw out as rubbish for the trash collector. Now, the second thing that you can start in this journey of sustainability is to decide among all the impacts that you make today, and once you have realized these impacts, pick one which you feel you are in control of changing. Some of you feel that you can start by looking at changing the way you consume your food. Maybe eat less meat every alternate days and consume more fibrous and more plant-based diet. As you all know, consuming a lot of meat contributes a lot of emission into the atmosphere. Another example would be maybe making a conscious effort to drive less to work, to either start carpooling, find friends who are carpooling, or make that effort to start taking public transportation. For me, public transportation was a no-brainer. It was saving me a lot of money from parking, and that 45-minute journey to and from the office allowed me to read at least 15 to 20 pages of my favorite books every evening and morning. So decide on which impact you'd like to tackle. Now, the third thing would be to connect with organizations or people who can support and motivate you further in your environmental journey. For me, it was easy. I started a nonprofit, and I used the opportunity to create a whole lot of fun community and volunteering programs that not only got me involved directly, but got my family involved as well. I also participate and support the efforts of other nonprofits, sometimes virtually, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and lately more physically as well. River cleanups, giving talks, you name it. I would give myself an opportunity to give back to society through volunteering experiences. And not only do I gain many new friends, I also help strengthen my narrative, my communication to communities to convince them to take that sustainability journey with me. Now, the fourth thing that is, I think, somewhat easy to do, especially if you're sitting behind a screen right now, is to consistently share, communicate, and influence others using digital platforms or digital social media platforms. You can share stories on your IG, you can tweet about it, you can join webinars and contribute as a participant, you can give talks to school kids about sustainability. I think communication is key here in driving good changes for sustainability. You can share amazing articles on your LinkedIn channel. You can watch a good movie or two on Netflix, on Amazon Prime that is about the environment, and that would be a wonderful way to get your family on board to understanding sustainability. Or if you're like me, tune into TED Talks. That would be an easy gateway to actually learn about sustainability, and after you're done with the talk, share it with someone you love. The last and final step would be to repeat steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like for me, in our family, tackling waste was our main priority because we felt that if we could champion efficient waste management at home, then we would be getting ourselves ready to tackle bigger issues of sustainability. So I'm really proud today that we have also addressed our water consumption issues. We've just recently built a rainwater harvesting tank, a DIY. We picked it up on YouTube. And now we're actually saving a lot of rainwater that flows from our rooftop into a couple of 60-liter bins. And we use it for watering our plants as well as cleaning our pot. And that saves us a whole lot of money as well as resources instead of just using pipe water. The third thing that we've recently tackled is looking at energy efficiency at home by looking at replacing a lot of our older light bulbs with the more energy efficient LED ones. So sustainability for me and my family is a continuous journey. And while I can sit here and say the government should do this, the private companies should do that, the school should do that, you should do this, and you should do that, I think it's more important to spend your time and energy reflecting on what you can do as an individual. And multiply that with 30 million Malaysians. We can collectively make a bigger impact for sustainable development in the country. Now, what I've just shared with you isn't exactly rocket science, and neither am I saying that my approach, which I am sharing with you, is also the absolute best approach. What I do know is that it has worked for me, it has worked for my family thus far, and I think it has worked good enough for me to continue in this endeavor to promote and champion sustainability at home. I like to think that we're walking the talk. And walking the talk sometimes is the hardest thing to do. By taking that first few baby steps, by practicing sustainability, I think it puts a more realistic approach into what we are playing, what our role is in society. So before I end, I would like to share this thought with you. I get asked a lot by peers, friends, colleagues, you name it, people from the media, about why I'm passionate about sustainability or the environment. I also get asked a lot by the younger generation if you need to study environmental science to be able to drive a sustainable movement. Let me tell you this. All that doesn't matter. You don't need to study environmental science to be an environmentalist. You don't need to be passionate about the environment to drive sustainability. It can be anything in life that you want to pursue or drive. And I am who I am today in society simply because I'm just a determined individual. And I really believe in what I do. I believe that I can, with my knowledge, with my experience, with my passion, with my love, with my dedication, with my determination, I can take sustainability to the next level, even if I'm my own individual. And at days and times when I feel jaded, defeated, I look up and find inspiration in all of the other people and organizations out there that are doing a wonderful job. So I hope that this talk, if anything at all, can encourage you to be determined, because it is determination that is the key to driving your passion. And it is determination, I believe, that can change one small habit at a time for a sustainable future tomorrow. Thank you for listening.